everyone. Welcome to another Mental Health Monday. I am here with Mark O'Connell. He is a psychotherapist in New York City who helps individuals and couples integrate various authentic versions of themselves. He draws on his years of training and experience as an actor, which we're going to get into a little bit tonight to help him access each of his clients. He is also the author, and I have links. Don't worry. I have links. I have links galore for you. He is also the author of the book, The Performing Art of Therapy, Acting Insights and Techniques for Clinicians, and he teaches workshops for therapists on the art of using their best resources themselves in their clinical work. I'm going to post these links for those books, and also this is his Twitter, his website, and another website as well. I have links. You're shocked. I know. He has also written.
I'm impressed.
He's also written the book Modern Brides and Modern Grooms and has been published in clinical journals and popular media. All of Mark's work emphasizes the need for each of us to take up space and be recognized while making efforts to understand the perspectives of other people at the same time, even and especially when we are in conflict with one another, which I am super excited to talk about tonight. Thank you for being here tonight, first of all.
Thank you so much for having me.
So Mark, in your bio, you mentioned being an actor. Are you still an actor in the traditional sense? And do you still consider yourself an actor as you perform your current work?
That's an excellent question. And the first part, no, I'm not an actor in the traditional sense. No, I don't take, I'm not offered jobs like that anymore. If a friend asks me to do something fun, like a reading or a little project, I'll do that. But I love the second part of your question because I do think of myself as an actor in terms of what I do clinically. And people wonder what I mean. You can't say that too much because it sounds funny. It sounds like I'm being fake with my clients, and that's not at all what I mean. I actually mean the exact opposite. The art of acting is about truth. It's about finding truth in various life circumstances and perspectives, and that's what being a therapist is. You're in these scenes with people, and trying to find out the truth of the behaviors and the experience. And so yes, great question. And I do think of myself as an actor professionally still.
Sometimes I feel like whenever I'm talking to my therapist, she probably has to put on an acting face so that she doesn't seem overly shocked or disappointed, or not disappointed, but just really kind of questioning. Although she doesn't spare, she doesn't pull her punches. so maybe not, but.
Well, it's funny when I first started out, I probably thought of it in those terms, in terms of I've got to hide some kind of reaction. But actually now, it really depends. I'm always trying to find a genuine expression on my face, meaning, your thoughts register whether you know it or not. Mm-hmm. And that's part of the art of, it's almost like film acting more than even theater acting, because there's no hiding your thoughts. And so your therapist may not want to show you a reaction, but perhaps she's thinking in terms of her curiosity about what you're actually saying, and which is truthful. It's not actually hiding when you think of it that way, if that makes sense.
It does. It does make sense. Okay. Can you come over here? Come here. Stay over there for a little bit. He has been very needy today. He always, anytime I'm talking, so I sit right here for work as well. And anytime I'm on a conference call or anything, this is what he does just the whole time. He's like, you're talking to someone else. You're not supposed to be talking to someone else. But if I'm not, he just lays over there. And so,
but he seems so inviting and comfortable, and he's not whining. So that's,
no, he's not. He's not. He'll just pull my earbud out. You saw him earlier trying to pull it out. And he's like, oh yeah, see, if I stop, then he'll start trying to go for my hand or my earbud and be like, no, you got to pay attention to me. So can you tell us a little bit more about your experiences and what made you become interested in moving from acting to specializing in mental health?
Yeah, well, I think I always wanted to do both, really. I just love listening to people and learning about all kinds of people. That's just what I love to do, always. and I was very needy, like the kitty, and perhaps, and just needed to have some attention of my own for a time. And that's why I pursued acting. I grew up as a listener, like I said, and I think acting, particularly in college, was like an opportunity to be all the people I was listening to, or at least those versions of myself. And then I went to graduate school for acting as well, and started working in New York and regional theater and so forth. But I wasn't. Maybe I just wasn't good enough, or my personality wasn't good enough to sustain that lifestyle, but I just wasn't getting the opportunities that I wanted. And so I started a theater company for myself and for other artists that I knew, to just play a range of people. I think the industry kind of tries to pigeonhole you and make you your, what I call your everyday self, like the personality that you show to people, but that's not who you are as a total human being, I think of it like kind of like a piano. Like you've learned to play a few of the keys, but we all have the capacity to be all these keys. And so I did that with the theater company. I gave myself and other people that opportunity to expand our expression of self. And we had talkbacks with audiences, and it was great. And I just felt like social work school was a natural extension of that, just like an interest in lots of different people and our capacities to be lots of different things. And therapy was the next step there as well. I think that the therapy office is, it's kind of like a rehearsal studio, or like when you're an audience even, or reading a book and getting lost in a character's life. It's an opportunity to step outside of everyday life and to find the different parts of you. And so that's my long-winded way of saying I feel like I've been doing the same work forever, and it's just taken different forms.
I've never heard anyone describe therapy in a therapist's office that way, and I love it. That is fantastic. I mean, what a way to look at that in a different. A lot of time you think of therapy and it's just, okay, you go in and there's a couch, right? And then you're talking to someone, and and that's not necessarily what therapy always is. And describing it differently just kind of highlights that a little bit. Yeah. No, I'm glad you like it. It should be. I actually believe it should have an element of play at all times. Well, speaking of play, we have a question from chat already, and Alex asks, "What are your favorite types of games and why?" Oh, my favorite types of games. Well, I have a toddler, so right now I'm playing a lot of, gosh, what am I playing? I don't even know. My brain is fragmented. What do we? If you have a toddler, your brain is fragmented. That's true. These are facts. Mostly he just hands me like his stuffed animals and he says, hi, you're supposed to talk as the stuffed animal. So I play role-playing games with my son's stuffed animals. Listen, I'll bet your acting comes in really handy with that. It can be helpful. Certainly. Most of the time, whenever my kids would hand me something, I would just like the same 3 lines, over and over, and that's really about it until they told me then they'd start telling me, no, mommy, now yours says this. No, now yours says this. Right. Oh, good. So mine isn't the only tyrannical director there. That's good to know. And if you step outside of it, they will correct you and bring you back. Absolutely. Bite marks said toddlers do that to you for sure. Yes, they absolutely fragment your brain. That is 100% what they do. So what are, aside from role-playing with your toddler and their stuffed animals, what are some of your favorite hobbies? Oh, hobbies. Yeah, I just made my son an Elmo elf cake. It was an Elmo head with a little elf hat on it. So I do like to make cakes. And if I lived in England, I suppose I would want to be on the Great British Baking Show. But I'm an amateur baker, I suppose. I like to bake cakes, and I like to play tennis. I like to watch movies. My 14-year-old really likes the Great British Baking Show, and she'll get so invested in someone, and then just like it's heartbreak whenever something bad happens to any of them, and she just really goes. She's there for the ride with that show.
Oh, it is. It's very emotional.
Yeah,
I love
it
that
is.
show.
So you mentioned that you like watching movies. Do you have any current or even all-time favorite films or shows?
Oh, I have both. I have currently, I don't know if you find this, but it's really hard to find a good movie these days. You spend the 2 hours searching, and I don't know, they don't make them like they used to or something. They're not great. But Ma Rainey's Black Bottom is available on Netflix, and it is about Ma Rainey. It is a fiction. It's a play. Ma Rainey was, of course, one of the founding blues singers, and really helped to popularize the blues in the 30s. She was one of the first recording artists of the blues, and Viola Davis plays her in this movie.
Oh, nice.
And it is so fantastic. August Wilson, the playwright, it's based on his play, and I just want to say about it, and George C. Wolfe directed it. He's a wonderful director. It grips you, and you cannot take your eyes off of the characters the entire time. No action sequences, incredibly moving, and about the human condition, certainly about racism, but it's a great play, and that's been translated to film very beautifully. So I do have an answer to that question. You should see Ma Rainey's Black Bottom. And my all-time favorite movie is The Age of Innocence, the Scorsese movie. Yeah.
I don't think I've seen that one.
Oh, you must. It's beautiful.
Of course, I also can't remember a lot of things that I have seen, so there's that. Oh, look at you with your real good link. I like that better. Thank you. Can you do the same for Age of Innocence, please? We have another question in the queue, and that is, what made you decide to go into therapy, and how old were you at the time? So, yeah.
Right. So I, like I had said before, I was always interested in listening, and it was in the back of my mind always that I would, I guess somewhere in my mind, I fantasized about being a very successful actor who would then just choose to be a therapist one day. And so I wasn't a successful actor. So I finally just said, all right, I can just do this. And so I was producing plays and having these talkbacks, and it was work that was very much social work already. And I just decided I wanted to do that more than in terms of entertainment. I wanted to engage human beings, and having had that taste of engaging people in that way. And and so I just decided it was time. And so I went back to grad school. You asked how old I was. I think I was 27, something like that. Can't remember now. It's that toddler brain thing.
Listen, you're not lying. A lot of people talk about having a parent brain, and it is no joke.
It isn't.
It's no joke. Not only are you probably, I don't know how old your toddler is, but not only are you probably, sleep deprived, but
Yes.
it just, having a child splits your brain in many different ways, and you can't necessarily always form a coherent sentence, as I'm evidencing right now.
We're in this together, so
Yep.
It's all good.
Yeah, my toddler is no longer a toddler, but I can still blame him, right? Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, I think so.
So what is your favorite thing about working in the mental health field, and also what has been your biggest challenge?
My favorite thing is talking to so many people, having conversations every day with so many different people. I can't even tell you how rewarding that is. And to really dive deep into different points of view and have that, it's a privilege really to have such open, deep conversations with people, and to really be invited into their interior lives. It's the most gratifying thing I can imagine. And the greatest challenge, honestly, is the insurance. It's our healthcare industry right now, and it's so discouraging that we can't just get it together. Not only in getting the insurance companies to take care of us for all of our health needs in a reasonable way, in an accessible way for everyone, but also mental health in particular. Just not, a lot of these companies will cut off therapy after a few sessions, and it's just not, good therapy is just not as accessible as it really needs to be, and as you know, people deserve for it to be. So that's really the greatest challenge, is when it becomes difficult to work with as many people as I'd like, and just to know that there are many people out there who can't access that service. That's really the greatest challenge.
Yeah. Jamie said insurance never wants to cover mental health. Yes, that too.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's very hard to find a plan, or it's a plan that has a huge deductible or some obstacle that is just outrageous, really. But I do want to throw in there, there's, for many people, there, especially now that everything's virtual, there are various organizations that have a list of therapists who will either provide a sliding scale, or community mental health clinics, where you can really get some great therapists. And really just having that opportunity to whoever the person is, as long as they're listening, that is the greatest, most mystical, transformative part of the whole deal, really, no matter how they're trained. Of course, you want them to be trained, but it's, you know, you want a good listener in your life. So please find that for yourself.
Yeah, absolutely. And guys, I just popped in a couple of different links. So the first link that I popped in there is yourrad.org. They have a therapist finder. They will assign a care team to you to help you find one that is affordable and is actually a real human who will help you. Also, Psychology Today, if you go to that link, there is a sliding scale that you can use on there. And then if you are international, To Write Love on Her Arms has those international resources. So feel free to use any of those if you want to, if you need them, if you don't have a therapist yet. Jamie said, I've used Psychology Today to find a therapist. Perfect. I actually used Psychology Today to check ratings on my therapist before I tried her out. So Kevin says, as a professional, do you have a sense for when someone is holding back and or exaggerating their issue? That's a good question, Kevin.
That's a great question. And I have an answer to that. It's when I'm bored, because I'm never, nothing bores me about a person's life. That's why I'm suited for this job, unless they're, whether it's just energetically or in terms of just hiding content, I get bored if there's an effort to hide something. It's a very strange thing, but I've come to accept that about myself. And it helps me to understand, okay, and then to amp up the empathy at that point and be like, you're falling asleep because there's obviously a great need to hide something. So then I get very curious and try to help them, open up more.
You're curing your own boredom with trying to help them, right?
It's a very interesting thing, because it seems selfish in a way, but it's actually, that's where acting comes in. It's scene work. It really is the two of you out there. It's almost like improv partners. And you kind of get a sense when your partner's not open to you and they're letting you down in a way. And so exactly, that's a great way of putting it. By curing your own boredom, you're actually, as the great psychoanalyst Winnicott, D.W. Winnicott said, you're inviting them to play, which is the main task of any therapy, really.
Yep. Bite, I was trying to add the sex positive and kink allied link, and I'm facing a character limit. So I know I said I would do that last time and I didn't, but what I'm going to have to do is break this into two, links, I think. Or maybe reference one. We'll see. We'll see how that has to happen, but I will make it happen. I promise. It is on my list of future to-dos. You know what? Can you pop that into Discord? Actually, Bite, if you'll pop that into Discord in that channel where it's future implementation, just so that it's a like lit up thing for me, and then I'll do it after stream. Yeah. So Psychology Today also has the sex positive and kink allied search. It is a little bit buried on their site, but it is there. So if you have something specific that you're looking for, you can use the link that Bite Mark posted. Yeah, absolutely. Oh, Jamie said I looked for specifics on Psychology Today since not many specialize in adoption. That's a yes. Psychology Today, you can also narrow it down by what they specialize in and all sorts of different things. And then also I'll say, because I've had to do this when I was trying to find a therapist for my daughter, I just called. Like I just called if I asked for recommendations, and then I would just call their office and be like, here's the basic thing that she's dealing with. Is there someone who specializes in this in adolescence also? So, like, just everyone hates making phone calls. I get it. Send an email. If they don't respond to the email, then they're not the therapist for you, maybe, if you don't like phone stuff. Hey, Ron, how are you today? Been sick and depressed. I'm sorry to hear that. My bestie committed suicide a few days ago. Ron, I'm so sorry for what you're going through. I'm glad that you are here today. Thank you for being here. And if you need anything, please holler. Happy to talk, but also talk to your therapist about it. Kevin said, I am so excited to hear someone quote Winnicott. Oh, there you go. It is a joy to be hidden and a disaster not to be found.
Yes, it's another great, everything about Winnicott is fantastic. It's inspiring to me.
Yeah.
Because he started as a child doing play therapy, and he was one of the great play therapists, and he just brought that concept to working with adults. It's like, even if you're not doing, playing with toys and trucks and things, that it's the same. It's a wonderful way of illustrating what that energy ought to be between the adults in the room, of play, keeping the ball in the air, between two people.
Speaking of play therapy, this is completely sidetrack, but I went in one of my sessions, this was a while ago, before I actually did find a therapist for my daughter. She was talking about things that she does with kids, and she doesn't specialize in what my daughter needed. And so she was just, I was just like, well, what does it look like what's the difference between you doing therapy with an adult and you doing therapy with your specialty with a kid? And so she was like, you know what? It's better if I just show you. And she brought out the most infuriating little game. And she was like, listen, we're going to sit on this floor. We're going to play this game. And I'm going to tell you what I get whenever I play with a kid and the different things that I get whenever I play with an adult. And it was just a little, like, you match the little things to the little areas. And then if you don't match in time, it all pops out. It was awful. Because she's having me do it with my right hand. Then she'd have me do it with my left hand. Then she was like, okay, now you have to look up and just feel everything. And it's, yeah.
I like to think of the verb invite. You want to invite people to play,
yes,
not command
yes.
to play,
Well, I was kind of forcing her to show me, so it was fair. It's fair. Your play therapy is video games. There you go, Jamie. Ron, thank you again for being here. I appreciate you stopping by. I'm sorry for what you're going through, and I hope that your pain eases soon. Kevin said, I have a poster. I made a picture my kids took of me crying during my worst time, and I blew it up. I put one of the Winnicott quotes: the most aggressive and therefore the most dangerous words in the languages of the world are to be found in the assertion, I am.
I am. And when it's written, it's am is both capitalized letters. It's
yes,
alive. That's, you want people to feel alive. Winnicott really did say it all.
Yeah. So this is a clear time of extreme divisiveness, especially in the US. And with the holidays coming up, it's sometimes even more so, even though hopefully everyone's going to holiday gatherings virtually or having very small local gatherings. But with it being a time of togetherness, a lot of us find ourselves in conversations with those close to us who may have differing perspectives on pretty key life issues, what we would all consider pretty key fundamental ideas. What are some of the biggest conflict minds you've seen in the context of family holiday gatherings?
This year? I think we all know what they are.
Yeah.
So those, all of those things. I mean, yeah. I mean, it's worse than ever before I mean, it's on the surface, let's just put it that way, whether these kinds of things were always there. Oh, yeah. So, we're in a health crisis right now. So it's the social distancing. It's the whatever's happening in terms of who thinks who is the president right now. I mean, or who's going to be the president. And it's just that I think that the thing that I react to most is just how crazy the realities are. Let's put it that way.
Yeah.
So that stuff is really hard because it's gone from perhaps in the past where it's sort of like, you don't see me, and the political situation that or the politics that you support don't include me or are harmful to me. It's even beyond that now. It's sort of you have to interface with another reality. And the question is, what do you do? What do you do with that? Do you try to challenge it? How do you? So it's this impossible dilemma of there isn't even a fight to be had because you're talking about two different things entirely. So, as you can see, I'm talking around it because I don't have a lot of answers. There's a fantastic psychoanalyst named Jessica Benjamin. And she writes about these dilemmas. She actually has written about them for years. And then the past 4 years happened. And she calls it a doer done to dilemma. And it happens in life, but she's talking about it in the therapy room, in particular with a particularly combative client, where you feel like, wait a minute, I didn't attack them. Why are they saying I attacked them? How are they being victimized when they are attacking me? So, but she was mostly writing about that therapy situation, but really that happens in life, as we all know, and that especially right now, we can, you have that works where you feel like, oh my gosh, how is that person a victim when they are like really threatening me? So the term that she uses is mutual recognition. And it's a question of how case by case can you get to a place of, okay, look, we cannot agree, but I can recognize your vulnerability. Now, I recognize what makes you vulnerable, what you're afraid of, why you feel attacked. I can recognize that, and I can say that neutrally. And then I want the same from you. There is safety to be found in that. It just currently, if people are on the other side of the political aisle, the fact is, I haven't spoken to anyone who's had much luck with that. And that's the truth. But what you must do is imagine that that's possible and not give up on that.
Yeah.
You may give up for a time on trying to reach someone because you have to protect yourself, but you can't give up on imagining mutual recognition being possible.
Yeah, I feel like, I don't know, 10, 15 years ago, it was a lot easier to be like, well, I'm this and you're that. And it's okay. We agree on some things. We disagree on some things. No big deal. Now it's like, oh, you're that. Oh, you're that. Yeah. It's just, it's so polar opposite. Yes. It's hard.
Toxic. Yeah, it's incredibly hard. But it's okay to take care of yourself. I should have just led with that. It's okay. It's not, it's now more than ever to be boundaried. And in a way, the pandemic kind of gives you an excuse to be sort of like, you know what? We can't be in the same space this holiday. I'm going to have the boundary of, Zoom, and I can, see you and be genuine for that 15 minutes and then go away.
Right. Oh man, my internet cut out.
Really
Click. Yeah, no, listen, you're going through a tunnel. You're just in your home. What do you mean? Nope, there's a tunnel. Pretty sure there's a tunnel. People split hairs now. That's a really good point too. It's not just, can we agree on one thing? It's, well, which part of this do you disagree with, kind of thing.
Yeah.
Remember, the punching people in the face is probably not the best choice if you want to continue your relationship in the future. True. So, so Jamie asks, how do you avoid a confrontation with family with polar opposite political religious views when they insist on hearing your opinion? So they're asking you about these political or religious topics, and they're insisting that you weigh in. Is that what you mean?
Yeah, I would speak simply and speak from a place of vulnerability. And in a way that invites them to do the same. So you want to be vulnerable, clear, and curious is what I would say. And so, so from vulnerability, I just mean, I'm afraid of this happening. Be very specific with them. I'm afraid of this happening to me. I'm afraid of this very specific thing happening to my family. You don't want to tell them some kind of hearsay. You just want to say, this is how this affects me. And then be curious about them in a similar vein. Like what are you afraid of, or what makes you feel vulnerable about this? And see if they can get on board with that process of just, neither one of you see a blue sky is how you can say it. My sky is yellow, yours is pink. That's fine. Can you tell me about yours in the most vulnerable way without attacking me?
Yeah. It's tough because a lot of the time you do feel like you're being attacked with their responses. But I like what you said about opening up with vulnerability and kind of expressing a concern and then asking them what their concerns are, because then it becomes less about the topic or the which side of things you fall on, and more about how can we support each other if
Absolutely.
They respond in kind.
Right. If they respond in kind, that's always the question.
Bite Mark also asks, what is your favorite poem?
Oh, well, I have two favorite poems. In college, I used to love Audre Lorde. It was a litany for survival. I had it in my room, in my dorm room in college, a litany for survival. And it's just about people. I'm gay. And so but it's really about anybody who has the experience of feeling like, oh gosh, I'm being surveilled. And I don't know if I can, live freely moment to moment. And it describes that very beautifully. But right now it's that Elizabeth Barrett Browning poem, How do I love thee? Let me count the ways, because it just describes how I feel about my son. It's just, as much as they scatter your brain, as I think, as right, or anybody with kids, it's just, there's something, you kind of understand certain poems better once you have that feeling that they give you. So you realize, oh, it's not flowery at all. Those are the words, I want to use to talk about him. So those two.
Yeah, having kids, I mean, I had loved before, and of course I loved my parents and my family and all this stuff. And then once I had my daughter, it was just like, I did not love before.
Yeah, that's right.
And now I tell my kids they're at their dads for Christmas, but now I tell them every day, I'm like, do you know how much I love you? And they're always like, yes, Mom, we know. So do you think that anything good can come of these kinds of conversations and discussions and conflict? And is there a clear time where we should let something go if we're finding that resolution is not achievable?
Oh, excellent question. Definitely the second part of that. Yes, there is a time. The main thing is safety. So can anything good come out of it? Yes, if you feel safe, if both of you have safety. Whatever that means, you have to evaluate what that means. Emotional safety, physical safety. What good can come of it? Well, like I said, a mutual recognition. That's where the safety is going to be. It's not, I think what people get wrong is that there has to be perfect agreement of some kind, as if that's even possible. The perspectives are so different. So life context is so different that you're just not going to get the agreement. You're not going to get the feeling of winning. Neither one of you are. But often what ends up happening when you get in these loggerheads is that that's what the goal becomes, is to win. I got you, you see, and it can't be that. It has to be that you have to reset the goal. Mutual recognition. I recognize you and you can recognize me. And from there, we can apologize for ways that we may have inadvertently hurt someone or made them afraid or whatever we've done without realizing it. And we can build and build and build more and more safety from there. But it starts with that mutual recognition.
Yeah. Jamie said it's definitely hard having a conversation with someone who believes very differently from you. It's difficult not to be on the instant defensive. Yes, especially with a lot of the really hot topics right now. I think that's absolutely true.
Right. And that's why I don't want to say anything too general about that, because again, if some of those reactions or some of the things that are coming at you immediately make you feel unsafe, then okay, that's the time. Then you know this isn't going to be worth it for you. What I think is always worth it is to imagine, no matter who it is. And even if you've decided, you know what, in this lifetime, it's probably not going to happen. This rational part of my brain knows it's not going to happen. But just for your own soul, I think it's good to imagine that possibility. That's not the same thing as expecting it to happen.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And then actually daydreaming about how the dialogue would go if it could, mm-hmm. you know. If you could have a meaningful reciprocal exchange. And I think that's worth putting in your brain, in your mind. So anyway.
Well, and I honestly do think that we can get back to that point in our, in the not too distant future. I mean, it wasn't the too distant past that we could talk about stuff pretty rationally and see each other's perspectives a little bit easier. And I am hopeful that will happen again soon.
Yeah.
Jamie said, I actually did that today. My coworker was trying to tell me all the reasons not to get vaccinated. And I finally said, look, I appreciate your input, but my mind will not change. So I think we should drop this. Yeah. Yeah. Like I hear you. I understand what you're saying. That doesn't change my opinion. And I'm still going to do this.
Absolutely. Yeah. And that's a great opportunity to say, look, I understand for your own health, you need to do you. And, and you can put it back on the person in that way, see, and think about their vulnerability. Okay, take care of your own health by all means. I'm here to support you in that. Yeah. But I'm going to do the same for myself.
So is there anything specific you suggest to clients who are feeling they shouldn't take up space and be recognized in situations where they're facing someone who is antagonizing them in some way?
Yes. Well, again, as long as you feel safe, you always, you want to make sure that you're not exposed in a way that's going to be harmful to you. But taking up space also, yes, there are various things, but taking up space means a lot of different things. And I think immediately we all might think of the assertive version of that. I'm taking the spotlight. I'm physically taking up space. I'm being louder. That's one way that people need to take up space. But, for example, if you think of, this is a great way to illustrate, if you think of some of the couples I work with, where for one person, that is a lot of the goal, to get them to take up space in that sense. But for the other person who is very assertive, we don't think of this in terms of taking up space, but oftentimes that person is maybe afraid of taking up space with their vulnerability, with their doubts, with their worries. And so that is also taking up space. Telling the other person, you know what, I love you, I need you, coming from that place of vulnerability might be harder for that person. So it is case by case, and there are various ways I try to help people to do that in a way that is going to be safe and effective for them. I hope I'm not being too vague. It just depends on the person.
Yeah. Well, absolutely. I mean, you're right. There are people who are more than happy to say all of the words. They'll say all of the words as long as you'll let them. And sometimes it's hard to get a word in edgewise. And sometimes it's like, do I even want to get a word in edgewise? Should I even bother? I think in some situations, probably you should, especially like you're talking about a relationship. In that case, yes. Maybe at maybe at a holiday Zoom meeting, you might not want to.
Absolutely. You have really good examples and really fast.
No, thank you. Listen, my brain may be splintered, but that means that it's also going in like 15 directions at once and bringing me all the information back.
Yes. It's great improv.
So if you're in a conflict or you're in a conversation with someone with a differing perspective, what kinds of self-reflections should we be doing to kind of keep ourselves in check and make sure we're not the ones on that side of, oh my God, I can't believe that they just said that, or we're acting that way?
Right. So again, you're going to want to think about, have I been approaching this from a place of vulnerability? I know personally, if I've this year have gotten into a few of the social media back and forths with people too, and I think I'm on high for a while until I go back and look and say, if I'm really disciplined about this, all right, I was a little bit blamey and not as much, and judgy and not as much like, hey, I'm coming, and then I will try to course correct. So that was actually, social media can be helpful in that regard, because you know what, you can course correct. There's all this talk about cancel culture, but the truth is people just don't want to apologize. You can apologize. And that's how we learn how we've hurt people and move forward. You want to reflect on yourself, but you also want to reflect on them. And I often tell people, especially like in couples who are in conflict, to be like Meryl Streep or be like Viola Davis and be like a really great actor who's thinking about this really complex character that they have to play, or some of the other characters in the story, and wondering, even though on the page it's like, who is this horrible person? Really wondering, why are they this way? And being really interested in what could possibly be there, the thing that they're not saying, that that is making them feel threatened. Yeah. So being curious about them and sort of monitoring yourself as well. Am I being vulnerable myself?
Social media is it's so easy to get sucked into a battle, like not even just a conversation, but it's so easy to see something online and the thing is, you can have no background on someone. It doesn't even have to be someone that you know. And then all of a sudden you're in the middle of it. And it's like, how do you reconcile that with this curiosity about who they are, and you literally have never met the person in your life?
Well, that's the thing. You probably shouldn't. You probably shouldn't get too
embroiled
in those ones.
Yes.
I know it's very easy to. I mean, it's social media is its own animal in some ways, and so there's a way in which there are different purposes. Like you want to come to someone's defense, and you want it to be seen that they have people who are supporting them, and that may be of value in a given circumstance. It might be. But largely these discussions, I think, in terms of the questions I think you're going to try to, and Murray Bowen, the family therapist, would often talk about this too, about you want to keep the relationships dyadic, just you and that person. And once it gets triangulated into the toxic morass of like the community feelings, then you've already lost the potential to connect.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. Yeah, because at that point, it's just your side, my side. Yeah. Cancel culture, mob mentality. Exactly. Yeah. Those are they're awful.
But if you know what, people would be surprised if you kind of DM someone who you're like, you know what, let's start here. Let's talk about vulnerability privately, where I'm not trying to publicly shame you. Yeah. I mean, that might blow someone's mind potentially, or it might make them run away scared.
Listen, they can always block you if they don't want to.
That's true. That is true.
Also, by the way, guys, you can block people if you don't want to. There's a block button. I think every social media platform has that block button. Use it if you need it. So how do you take strong emotions out of tense conversations like those that we're talking about here? Or should you take strong emotions out of them at all?
Oh, you mean while you're in the conversation? If it's getting too hot, you got to footnote it for later and say, okay, this isn't going to work. So that's the short answer. You want to keep it as measured as possible. And if it can't be measured, that means you have to go back and maybe revisit that when you can come from a place of more curiosity and calm and clarity. Yeah, it's okay to be emotional, but you don't want the emotion to be anger. That's going to be defensive and it's going to provoke reactions always. It has to be, I've said the word too many times, I know, but vulnerable, I know. And I know it's trendy with Brene Brown, who is actually brilliant. You know, I mean, she's a phenomenon, but she's brilliant at the things that she says. And she's right. She's very insightful. She's right. That's how we're, you know, that's where our capacity to connect lies. So you want your voice even to be, sometimes I give acting coaching to clients, individuals and couples, when they're talking, you know, individuals when they're talking about arguments, and I'll say, you know, can you give, I'll just give them a line reading and just say, can you say it from down here? What is it going to take for you to say it from lower in your body with a deeper breath? And then we talk talk it through about how they could get there themselves. So yeah, you just want to think about you can be emotional as long as it's vulnerable. Yeah.
It's so neat to me that you draw from all of these things from your acting career to help your clients. Just so cool.
I'm telling you, everything. It's every aspect of the job. The acting applies to it. Every aspect of it.
That's great. So we have another community question. This one was actually sent in Discord ahead of time. So they said, say I have a circumstantial relationship with a person, like a coworker or something who I have to interact with regularly and overall is nice enough, but I just get this gut reaction that I do not like them, like talking to them and don't want to interact with them. How do I deal with that without making things more uncomfortable for myself? Do I confront them and say that? Do I try to explain how I prefer to communicate or interact with people and ask that they do that in the future? This person said they're a very non-confrontational person with high social anxiety, so they're hoping there's another way. Also, if I do have to confront them, how do I do so without being labeled a bitch just for being a woman addressing issues, which is a whole separate valid question.
Yeah, absolutely. 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 Wow. So this coworker isn't in the question, isn't saying specific things necessarily. It's just a funny way that they're making the person
That's
feel.
what it sounds like. So she said that the coworker is nice enough, but just there's a gut reaction of, I don't want to talk to you as much as you want to talk to me.
Oh, I see. You know, there's nothing wrong with beginning from a place of setting boundaries with people, and that's an overused word too. But really, we could use the word parameters if you like. But nothing wrong with that, and beginning there, and non-verbally even instructing people on what on your space, that's a version of taking your space as well. Saying, that's great. I have to get back to work, or it's okay to not engage with people. Is where I would start. I don't know if there's a follow. Is the person still here?
Well, so this was sent ahead of time in Discord because I think she wasn't quite going to be able to make it to this live. But I would just say that I know that she says she has high social anxiety, and so I think that something really simple, like just saying, I have to get back to work, is a good example. But I also know, like, if there's, what's a good way to explain to someone how you prefer to communicate instead of however they are communicating with you? I guess it would be a good question to ask here too.
How you prefer to communicate. To show them. I think that's a matter of showing more than telling. Because the person it sounds like that the coworker doesn't know that they're doing something off-putting. So you want to start with showing and seeing if those signals can do something. I guess if the signals are not getting picked up, then maybe say, excuse me, but then I know it's a dilemma because this person obviously doesn't want to have to confront them.
Right.
Yeah, and it's okay to get some support for your boundaries too. In this case, it doesn't have to be triangulating. If you're sort of like, oh, actually have to go talk to this other person. I don't know. It's a tricky one, and I'd want to talk about the specifics more with the person. But it's okay to have boundaries. Let me just leave it with that.
If she shows up here in a little bit, we can ask her a little bit more about it. She's in California, so opposite side. So she's a little bit early in her evening still to be here. But yeah, I mean, I've had situations. I mean, the difference is that I don't have a super high social anxiety. I have anxiety, but it's not necessarily social anxiety around talking to people and kind of saying, you know, hey, I've got to do this. Can we talk later? Or I don't have a problem with that. I'll tell people what I think. I'll tell people what I need. That's not the problem that I have. So it's hard for me to really ask any follow-up questions for her. So I hope she shows up. Because I've had a couple of very chatty coworkers, and I don't mind them being very chatty. Believe it or not, I'm not a super chatty person at work. But they'll chat to the extent that I'm like, okay, this has gone on way too long. I have things I have to do. And at one point I had to be like, okay, I'm going to work. If you want to keep talking, you can keep talking. If I miss what you say, you'll just have to repeat it. And that worked most of the time. Most of the time they're just like, oh yeah. Oh, actually I should get back to work too. But like I said, I don't have a problem saying stuff like that. So.
Right. And I would imagine that there was actually probably other dynamics in this situation going on that we want to sort of understand better. Because there's so many unspoken ways in which people cross boundaries. Mm-hmm. There's so many dynamics related to gender, related to all kinds of things in terms of hierarchies of socialization that are subtle about. So that might be part of what's going on as well. And those things are inchoate and they're uncomfortable to talk about too. So that might be. I think it's important not to internalize your own need for space first and foremost, and not to internalize the messaging about that you might get, like she mentioned. Oh, I'm afraid of being called this name. We want to first and foremost say it's okay for me to take space in my own way, and not internalize, whatever is being asked of me to accommodate this other person, So that's a lot of the work, really, is internal. Yeah.
Are there certain things you should watch for in a professional setting as far as, and this is hard because, so the last part of her question, if I have to confront them, how do I do so without being labeled a bitch for just being a woman addressing issues? Like, that's a huge issue for me as well that I have faced in my career with just, I might be laying it out exactly as someone else would lay it out, but because I'm a woman, like, it comes off as very abrasive to someone else. And so is there any advice you could give for how not to come off like that?
Well, we can't, unfortunately, we can't control how other people react to us. I wish we could, and we shouldn't think that way. I don't think, because that contorts our brain and our own expressiveness, And if we're trying to fit into the mold that someone has created for us, I think it messes with your soul and your own sense of aliveness. Like we were saying about that Winnicott quote, I am. We just bought, there's a new book for kids. It's for a little older than my son, but it's about Shirley Chisholm, who was the first Black person and first woman to ever run for president. And in the 70s, I believe, the late 70s. A fascinating person, but it's a book about her and about the ways that she took up space, and and she was in the Senate and all of these white men, and she had a very strong voice, and so there's ways there's some, so looking to people like that Kamala Harris as well is someone who, is really is so grounded and on her own side. And it's really remarkable to watch someone not cave to, there's so much hateful things coming at people, women in particular. So, oh gosh, I'm not answering your question, but I'm trying to. I mean, looking to people who show us how important it is to stay on our own side, even when it's in the moment. It can be not rewarding, and it can be you can get responses from people, and you will get responses from people, but you can't give up on yourself. It's and people, you can change people. And the only way to do that is to be yourself. Do not contort. That's where we're starting from.
Yeah. No, I think that's really good advice, because that's one of the things that I don't care if someone else views me as one way. Like, that's just, do I care ultimately about how I'm viewed by a person? Sure. But in a situation at work where I am in charge of something and I'm supposed to be telling them what to do, no, I don't care if they think that I'm anything other than just their boss at the time, or anything other than in charge of that project. And it's like, it's hard to, on a personal level, separate that from this is at work. So if you're trying to be liked all the time, I see how that could be a problem. But I also have seen in my career that not worrying about whether or not you're likable is usually beneficial also. in my field, not in every field. Yes. I know in some you want to be liked. But
I always encourage everyone to take time to meditate, even if that means it doesn't have to be sitting and meditating. It can be when you do your whatever exercise you do, whatever time you take to go for a walk or be alone with yourself and just daydream. That's meditating. Whatever you do to take that space away from everyday life and just really daydream about, gain some perspective. That's a way to see yourself in a more accurate way than the reactions that people give you. And a practice of that, I think, can reinforce your own resiliency, I think, and bravery as you embody yourself and in even in your personal life, in your relationships, if that makes sense. Taking some time to reflect in that way can help.
It does make sense, and I like that you're putting that in the context of what you're doing daily and putting into kind of this meditation thing, because a lot of the time, whenever I think about those things is when I'm trying to go to sleep. And if I give it some space during the day instead, it's like I'm giving it space to actually think logically about it instead of tiredly thinking about it, cycling in my brain.
Yes.
So are there any regular habits you either maintain yourself or that you encourage your clients to develop that you may feel don't get enough attention, like sleep and eating and exercise all get enough attention, but something that supports overall well-being that's overlooked a lot of the time?
That's a great segue, because daydreaming is actually what the answer to that would be daydreaming, which sounds funny, but we don't do enough of that. And it's when that's where you gain perspective. And it's interesting. Doris Kearns Goodwin, the presidential historian, she wrote the great book about Lincoln, the team of rivals, and she wrote several other books, Roosevelt, a couple others. She said that all the great presidents took time, like oblivious time, on purpose for that very reason, to gain perspective. Yeah, and it's we often think we just have to plow through and get things done and be productive, but actually we do ourselves a disservice, and it's so hard to get out of that cycle. But when we're not daydreaming, Because that's when, like you said, it's like what your mind does anyway at nighttime and when you go to sleep. But this way, you have this purposeful, kind of conscious awareness. It's the awareness of it and of the and it enhances your perspective. Yeah, because there's no way. I mean, we want to think that life is linear in our lives, but they're not. It's very multifaceted, and the daydreaming helps us kind of integrate all of those parts of life that really don't make sense. A lot of it doesn't make sense when you really think about it. You need
True.
to kind of step away and go, oh, this is weird.
Yeah. And I feel like also maybe daydreaming, going back to the perspective piece of it, sometimes daydreaming will help you connect different things, right? Like if you're daydreaming about something and then all of a sudden a problem you were thinking about earlier, maybe a solution pops into your head from left field and you had no idea that was going to happen, but because you gave yourself time to think creatively, or at least think, not, what am I trying to say? Like not tied to anything. There's a word.
A result. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, there's a word that I'm not thinking of. That's okay.
Yeah, no, right, an outcome of some kind. Yeah. So, I mean, I think you're right, and it is. You do have your mind is more creative from that place. Yeah, with less pressure. You're outside of, and and also you can reflect on, and this is important too, more specifically. I also ask people to reflect specifically on multiple times. And I know that may seem weird, but we think of the present as either being hyper vigilant and like, I'm all here, I'm present, or kind of like, all right, I'm doing nothing. And it's really, it's neither of those things. It's this rocking back and forth. It's a dynamic practice. It's not a state of being. It's dynamic. And so I ask people to think about the past, who they were in the past and how far they've come, like when you're in this meditation time, this daydreaming time, and think about the future, about what you hope to achieve and what the various outcomes could be. And then also to see what's going on right in front of you. And from that place, you can sink deeper actually into your present. And with more will to kind of embody where you are in the moment, I think.
So if you weren't doing what you do now, or if you could have chosen a different path completely, what would you be doing or have done instead?
Oh, I'm going to be so boring in my answer. I know, well, there's a part of me that kind of wishes I could just sing like Chris Isaak. I will admit that, or like Roy Orbison. It's very bizarre. I don't even know why. I don't even know where that came from, but it's in there somewhere. I'm just, I would like to do that with me and a guitar. It's such a strange thing. It has nothing to do with my everyday life. It's so far from me. But the truth is, I'm doing it just feels like a dream job. I mean, I've come at it in a lot of different ways, like I've said, from acting, and I write a lot, and but helping people in this way, I cannot imagine doing anything else. And it is so rewarding. It is surprising every day. I learn so much about other people and myself every day. And currently, as difficult as this year has been for everyone for various reasons, and it's certainly challenging to be at home. We have to be at home. To be able to work in close proximity to my son and to be a parent at the same time is a gift. It's a dream. It's a dream to be a parent and to work. What a dream come true is that. I truly cannot imagine doing more than that.
Yeah. Yeah. See, I look at it from the perspective of, is it nice to work at home with your children here? Yes. Is it also a pain? Yeah. Sometimes.
Yes.
Sometimes.
But when I daydream,
yeah. Well, see, there you go. And yours isn't in school yet, right? So
no,
see, I don't have any that aren't in school. So it's a little bit different for me, because he has a very, his class schedule doesn't always line up with my work call schedule. So I can't just say like, here's something you're going to do for a set amount of time, because it's like the class schedule. Yeah, it's a super fun,
right.
Super fun dynamic.
Complimentary.
Yeah. It's hard. I don't envy anyone right now. What we are going through is unprecedented, and I hope that it never happens again to anyone. And however you're dealing with it is great, and we'll get through it together. It is time for our Disney and magic moment, and I'm going to wave. I have a magic wand here that I'm gonna set to not flash too brightly and hard here. This is the Disney wand, magic wand. I gotta stop saying Disney. I'm pretty sure I'm gonna get sued or something. So I'm gonna hand this to you, and you get to wave it. And oh, come on now. There we go. You get to wave it and eliminate one common opinion or misconception or theory surrounding mental illness, disabilities, talking about mental health. What is that going to be that you are eliminating here today? Okay, and we'll just go ahead and wave it here. There we go.
Wave it. All right. The one thing that I want to change instantly about the way we talk about mental health is that you either have it as a sickness or you don't have a mental health issue. It is not, the medical model is not helpful for the way we talk and think about mental health. Mm-hmm. It's helpful perhaps for getting covered for procedures or medication or, for insurance coverage, for therapy, but it's not helpful in terms of how we talk about it, because it's human experience. It's the spectrum of human experience. That's what mental health is. And how each of us, it's a question of how each of us integrates the different versions of ourselves, and the versions of ourselves that life kind of brings out. Like we're all different people in some ways because of this quarantine, for example, that we didn't ask for that. And so, and we're, some ways our worst selves or whatever you want to, but in some ways we've risen to the occasion and been like, oh, wow, I didn't know I could do that. So it's how we integrate our humanity, the different facets of who we are. And that's how I want people to think about mental health, not in terms of, oh, do I have depression? Do I not? The answer is yes, we all have it at different points in time. We all have all of the emotions. And some of us have, it's not to minimize anyone who has chronic depression or chronic anxiety, or and because of the context of their life, biological, all of the factors, needs a diagnosis so that there can be intervention to help them live and be alive fully. But we're all on that spectrum of human experience. That's how I want to change the way we think.
Absolutely. That's a great thing to change. So with that, we are kind of at the end of the questions. If there are any more questions from the community, please feel free to put them into chat and we will ask them of our guests here. And I will just, while we're waiting on that, I will open up the floor to you and say if there's anything we didn't talk about or any resources you want to throw out there. You know what? Let me post your links one more time also so that everybody has those. But I will just hand the floor over to you and let you say whatever you want to say.
Oh, wow. Well, I mean, we covered a lot of ground. You asked really great questions.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for this. Yeah. Wow. This is what you're doing is such a great service. And I just think there isn't enough a conversation to normalize just the concept of mental health, or just to talk about what it even means. Again, it's just this idea of it being some kind of medical condition, and we're all expected to be sort of just fine. It's not about being fine or not fine. It's just about being human. But yeah, I think we covered it. Thanks to you. So
great. Awesome. Well, I don't see any more questions in chat. So chat, give me just a minute to disconnect with our guest here and I will be back. I am not sure what I'll be playing yet, but I'll be back playing something. We'll see what it is.